Okay, this is going to be our third and final tutorial for the dice game. What we're going to do is we're actually going to make it a kind of like a local multiplayer. We're going to take and we'll move these over, and then we'll Control C, Control V, and we'll move these over. And now we're going to need another label, so open your toolbox, go ahead and drag the label out, put it up in the center somewhere, and we'll call this label underscore winner result. We'll set its auto size to false. And let's make this, let's say 350, maybe. Yeah, it should be a good size. Center it a little bit. Let's give it a default text, waiting for roll. Let's go ahead and align the text right here, text align, put it in the middle. And let's change the font size and bold it. Let's try 20. Yeah, that should work. Alright, so now we're going to rename each of these. So let's do, let's do player 1 dice. Just copy this, go to each one of them, just paste that over and leave the number there. I'll go over to this one, change this to player 2. And we'll go down here and we'll do we'll actually change this into player 1 roll dice. Just copy this, paste this, and change it to player 2. And here we will go with player 1 display results. Go ahead and copy it, paste that, and change it to player 2. Okay, so now we got our board set up where we can have 2 players. Now what we're going to need to do is let's look at the code view here, and we'll expand our methods. Now you'll see here that it's not updated this yet, so I'm actually just going to take this out. And let's double click on this button. I'll double click on this button. Okay. I'm just going to move this up to my other region. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to make another class to hold some of the stuff, so paste that in there. Okay. So what we're going to need to do now is we're actually going to need to make a new class. So go ahead and right click on dice game, add, and click on class. We're going to call this player. Make sure you have the class there. We'll call it player. Add that. And go ahead and set up our regions here. Now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add one using statement here. We'll use system.drawing. And this is going to be a public class. So we'll put public there. So now if we'll look back over at the form here, you'll see we had these things, and now each player is going to need its own dice array and results array and its own random. So let's go ahead and cut those out. Paste it in here. Now some other things that we're going to need is we're going to check to see if the person has played or not. That way they can't just keep clicking the button before the other player can. So let's put in a bool. Played there. And in order to be able to tell if they win, we're going to have a way of ranking the, I guess you would call it a hand, like a poker hand. So we will do integer, call it hand rank. Now if you have the same thing, you're going to have some way of figuring out, like if you got two pairs, if one pair is equal to another pair, or if one pair is greater than both of the pairs and stuff like that. So we're going to need three different things. We'll call them mods. So mod 1, mod 2, and mod 3. And let's go ahead and make this random a static. That way it doesn't have the same number for each of our players. And we're going to need a couple strings, which will be result, and we won't initialize that yet. We'll just and name, because we're going to put that down in our constructor. So okay, now what we can do now is we're going to add some properties in, but we'll do that in a little bit. And let's see, we're going to have some public and private methods too. So okay, so let's go ahead and do our initialization, which will be our constructor. So let's go ahead and make it a public player, and we're going to pass in a player name. So what that's going to let us do is it's going to let us give each player a name. If you, I'm not going to put that functionality in right now, but this way, in case you want to go on with this, you can actually do that. So what we'll do here is we'll do name equals player name. We need to go ahead and get our array set up. So I mean, and if you want to, what we could do is we could just go ahead and cut these. Actually, let's go ahead and just do all of this right here. Just cut all that. And we'll just paste it. Now there are a few other things that we have here that we didn't have last time, like we need to make sure our hand rank starts at 0. And all our mods start at 0. And also, when the player starts, they haven't played yet, so make sure that's false. Okay, so now under the public methods, this is what we're going to be able to call from inside our form class here. So what we want to do is we want to be able to roll the dice. So just take in. We will actually go ahead and just delete that. then cut the roll dice, and we will put it over here under public methods, and that takes care of that. Now we're also going to want to be able to reset the player whenever we want to, so, and we also need to change this to public. So let's do a public void reset player. Now what we need to do here is, just like we did over here, we want to do the same thing. So we can take that out. Actually, let's just type it out here. Let's just do dice equals. And we'll loop through. That's fine. Yeah, let's just loop through. And we'll do the same thing for the dice. So when we reset the player, we'll reset everything back. We'll also put played equals false. Equals 0. Okay. Now let's go back over to our form class again, and what we'll see here is we'll just get this private method to get results. Let's get it. Let's cut that. Okay, and let's go put that over here in the private methods. Now, we'll keep this here. We're going to modify this stuff right here just a little bit. So, alright, so let's say each player has 5 of a kind. Well, we're not going to know what they have 5 of, so what we're going to do is put the mod 1 equal to I. Now what that's going to do is if they have 5 4s, it's going to return a mod 1 of 3, and then you can compare that versus the other mod 1 of the other player to see who wins. So let's look at 4 of a kind. Kind of do the same thing here. They have 4 of a kind. Mod 1 is going to equal to I. High straight and low straight we don't even need to check because it doesn't matter. High straight can only be the same thing as a high straight. So, alright, now what we'll do is we'll go down to 3 of a kind. Now it's a little different here. So your mod 1 is going to be what you have 3 of. So set that to I. And now your full house would be your pair. So let's go ahead and I'll set mod 2 equal to J. So now whatever you have 3 of a kind of is going to be the I. So you can compare the 3s. And then if you need to compare, if they have 3 3s on each of them, and you need to see what the pair is to see who's got the bigger pair, you would do the mod 2, which would be equal to J, whatever the pair is. So now when we go down here to check the pairs, we're actually going to have to check a pair. If you got 2 pair, we're going to check that differently and kind of separate from the rest after we get this set up. So what we're going to do is 1 pair, make sure that we haven't set mod 1 yet, which shouldn't be true. And if we haven't, we'll set mod 1 equal to I. And then, of course, we'll come down here and we will make sure that now if we get into this loop, mod 2, there should be no way that it would be set anyway. So let's go on down here, see what we've got. Okay, now this is going to be a little different here. What we're going to do is we're actually going to take out, do this a quick way here. Highlight the first if all the way down. And what we're going to do is, what's under right click or not. Alright, so we'll go up to edit, find and replace, quick replace. Now if you'll notice, we want to, we should have copied this first. We want to find every one of these in our selection. So look in current selection. We want to find label underscore P1 display results as text, and we want to replace it with result. So find, replace, 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 replace. Let's replace all those. Okay. So now what we've done here is that result is actually we've declared it right here. And we also, well, we should have put we should have made it and then put a default there. That way when we first start the game, it'll say roll the dice there, even though it's already put on the label, but we'll put it there. Okay, so go ahead and put our brackets in. Go ahead and do this for all of them. Almost done. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're actually going to assign these a hand rank, and that way we can be easy to sell. So we'll start here. Hand rank equals 1. And you go ahead and just copy that part. So then we can just paste 2, paste 3, and so on. Oops. Okay, so now we got each one of these set to a hand rank. Now the hand rank we need to really remember is this one right here, because it's going to have to be checked different than the rest of these. So hand rank 8. Alright, so let me make sure I didn't forget anything here. Okay, now what we need to do here is we need to set up some properties. And the reason for that is you don't want everything to be able to be set, but sometimes you want to be able to get like a private method from, or a private, all these right here, they're considered private unless you was put public in front of them. So this right here is actually the same as this right here. So it can't be accessed from outside this class. So what we do is we make a way that it can be, you can pull it out of the class, but not edit it. So like for the one we'll get, now you'll notice here that we're using a lowercase d, and we're going to use an uppercase D here. And we want to return want to get the return of dice. So now we can call this in a form class or any other class that we wanted to that was in this solution. So we also need a name. Now the name we're actually going to be able to set, so well, return. And now what this would allow you to do is you can put functionality into your game to where if you wanted them to be able to choose like from a menu and edit the name while they were playing, they could change their name. So let's say we also need if they played or not, and we'll need to actually set that. We'll also need the hand rank and all the mods. So, and we'll also need to return the result too. So let's go ahead and do that. Public int mod 1. And now for mod 2 and 3, let's just copy mod 1 here. Then we'll just change this to 2. Change this to a 3. Okay. So that should pretty much take care of our player class. If not, we'll find out when we try to compile here in a little bit. So let's go back over to our form 1. Now, there's a few things that we want to look at here. When we load, we need to actually, let's go up to the top here. Now, we need a way to make our players. So what we do is we call, it's going to be a top player. We'll call it player 1, player 2. Alright. And then what we need to do is we need to go ahead and put the player in. So player 1 equals new player. And as you see, it should give me a red line here. Alright, now why that is if you look over at the player class, in the constructor we said it has to have a player name. So let's go ahead and pass it player 1. Now let's say you wanted to add the functionality to change the name. You could do player 1 dot name equals. Now that would actually change the name. Even though you passed in player 1 here, it would update that name, and that would be called another name. So player 2 equals new player. Call them player 2. Okay, so now if you'll, let's see. Yeah, we don't have a label up here for that yet. Let's scoot this up. Sorry about that, I forgot to set that up completely. Let's go to put a label out here. And we'll call it LBL underscore P1 name. Set its auto size to false. Let's make it, we'll bold it, make it 16. Okay, now let's see. Size we do, it's 250. That doesn't look that bad. we'll just go ahead and I'm going to show you how this works. So we'll take the text out of this completely. Alright, so you see we got a blank label here. Copy and paste that. Drag it over to the other one. Now we'll leave everything the same except for the name. So if you click on this one, just copy that, paste it, and let's make it player 2. Okay, so let's go back into our form code here, and we will set LBL underscore P1 name equals player1 dot name. Now if you will look, this is why in the name, we don't just always want to set the name, we want to actually get what the name currently is. Now what that allows us to do to that label, well, if we were to put text there, it's going to set the text of that label to the string name of player 1 equals player 2 dot name. Okay, and we'll need to keep these. Since we don't want to have to declare the images in each of our players, we can just declare it here because we're going to use the same resources, so that'll be fine. Now we need to look at the actual button clicks here. And what we're going to want to do here is we need to make sure that player 1 hasn't played yet. Now you'll notice here I put an exclamation in front of player 1 not played. That means if this returns false, then we'll go ahead and go in, but if this is true, then it won't go into this right here. So if we want to check if it was true, we just take that off, and now if this returns true, then we would go into the if statement. So if player 1 not played, as you can see here, we're returning played, do that, and when the player is first made, it's automatically set to false. So they haven't played yet, we want to have them roll the dice, and we can call that from there because under the public methods we have roll dice. Okay, so I don't think I added get results to that, so we need to add that. Now the reason I forgot to do that, but the reason we're doing this is because this is actually a private method, as you can see, so it's going to be called from inside this class. So we can't actually call it from the form class. And I just want to show you how you can do public and private methods, and you can make them, the public method that you can call can actually access private methods in the same class here. So okay, so after we roll the dice, we're going to want to set the labels. So what do we name them? Label P1 dice1 dot image, and we want dice images. Now if you remember that over here we did set that we could get stuff out of the dice array, so we can return something out of the dice array. So what we want to do here is just like we did before on the previous code, except it's going to be actually player specific now. So player 1 dot dice 0, and then we'll copy these. And we'll change them to reflect the others. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, oops, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then what we want to do after we set all that is we want to make sure that player 1 not played, and we'll set it to true. And we're going to need a way to check and see who won. So what we'll do is I'll make another private method here. We'll do private void. I'm going to check for a winner, so we'll put check winner. Now all we got to do is we'll copy this, We'll paste it in player 2. Now we'll just change everything from player 1 to player 2. Okay, so now let's see how we're going to check and see who wins. Now this, hopefully I will do it in a way that will be easy to follow. So let's go ahead and we're just going to use an if statement, and we'll just nest ifs all the way down. So, okay, let's get started. Alright, so if player 1 dot played and player 2 dot played, alright, so what this means is both of these people have played, so it means they both click the button, because after they click the button it'll roll the dice, set their images, and it'll set that they have played. Then after each button click it'll check winner, and when you check the winner it will make sure that both of these people have played, and if they have, then we'll see who won. This will stop them from actually being able to click the button more than once. So one person clicks, another person will have to click their button before they can play again. Alright, so player 1 dot hand rank is greater than player 2 dot hand rank. Alright, so player 1's hand rank is greater than player 2's hand rank. We want to set the, what do we call it? Yeah, winner result. Text equals player 1 dot name. Now we don't just want to say player 1. We want to let them know that they won, so wins. So we've took the string of the name of the player and added in a space and the word wins with the exclamation mark. So that will actually print out to the label, player 1, whatever their name is, wins. If you forget this space right here, it'll actually print the strings together and it won't have any white space between it, so don't forget the space. So now if player 1's hand rank is greater than player 2's hand rank, then we know player 1 won. So if that's not true, else if player 2 dot hand rank and then player 1 dot hand rank. I'm just going to use the curly brackets here so you can kind of keep track of where we're at in the if statements. Even though we're only doing one line, we wouldn't have to have player 2 dot name. Okay, so if player 2 has a higher hand rank of player 1, then they win. Okay, if neither one of those are true, now we need to check. Remember what I said about having two pair? Two pairs going to have to be checked differently than the rest of it, because you can't just check your first mod versus your second mod, because you need to make sure that your first pair could be greater than their first pair, but maybe their second pair is greater than your first pair, and therefore you still wouldn't win. So we need to make sure that we check every possible way. So we'll do else if. We need to see if the hand ranks are equal to 8. I think it was. Was that what it was? Yeah, two pair hand rank 8. So if player 1 has two pair and player 2 hand rank equals 8, which means they both have two pair. Now we need to check the player 1's first pair against both the player 2 first pair and second pair. So we'll do mod 1 greater than player 2 dot mod 1. So if your pair is greater than their first pair and mod 1 is greater than player 2 mod 2. So basically it's just saying if your first pair is greater than their first pair and your first pair is greater than their second pair, then we know that you've won. So we'll just do player 1 here. Let's copy this and we'll paste that. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put two equal signs there. Make sure you do double equal, so we're comparing it. We're not setting it to 8. We're making sure that equals to 8. So, and okay, so if that is not true, else if your second pair is greater than their first pair, and your second pair is greater than their second pair, we know that you've won again. So now, what if, now we know that if the player one's first pair is greater than their first pair and their second pair, then they win. Or if their second pair is greater than their first and second pair, they win. So the only other thing that could be is player 2 wins or you have a tie. So we need to check for a tie. So let's see if player 1 dot, oops, player 21, player 1 dot mod 1 is equal to player 2 dot mod 1. So both players' first pairs are equal to each other. Okay, so if they're both first pairs are equal and both second pairs are equal, then we know it's a tie. Or if player 1 dot mod 2 is equal to player 2 dot mod 1 and player 1 dot mod 1 is equal to player 2 dot mod 2. So this will check each of the separate pairs to see if the pairs match. And if that's true, it would be a tie, right? Not exactly, because now we have 5 dice and now we've checked the 4. And if we have 4 matching dice, then there's 1 extra. So now we need to make sure, if you'll notice over here, we have a mod 3. I don't think I incremented it. Yeah, I did. Let's see. Maybe I didn't. Okay, so I never actually did this yet. So let's see. Mod 3 plus equals 6. Let's copy this. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now this is going to be total of the hand. So this is going to count every dice as it's added to the array and increment mod 3 by that. So if we have 2 matching pair, could be a tie, but we need to check that last dice. So what we can do is take the total of the whole hand, and if that matches, then we know we have a tie. But if one player's hand is greater than other player's hand, we know that that last dice must be larger than the dice of the other player, so they would win. So what we would do for that is we're going to have to check a little bit more, and then we can get out of this statement. So player 1 dot mod 3 is greater than player 2 dot mod 3. When a result dot text equals, we can just here. Basically, player 1 wins. Else if player 2 dot mod 3 is greater than player 1 dot mod 3, then paste that in. But we need to change it to player 2 will win. Okay, so if the total amount of the hand is greater for player 1, they win. Greater for player 2, they win. And if neither one is greater, that means they have to be equal to. So, else. Now, we're going to have to put it in player 1 plus put ties and a space at the end of it, and add in player 2 dot name. So this is going to say player 1 ties player 2. Okay, so now that'll do the two pair. So now, like we did before, we need to come right here and see we need to be. So it should be right here. If else, okay. So now we need to check the rest of them. So if the hand ranks are the same, okay, so if the hand ranks are the same, we need to, alright, since it can only be pretty much one way now, we can just check it really simply. Alright, if player 1 is greater than player 2, then we can just copy and paste that player 1 wins. Okay, else if player 2 dot mod 1 is greater than player 1 dot mod 1, player 2 is 1. Okay, and then, so like if you have 5 of a kind, 4 of a kind, you know, this is going to just, you don't have to check one. But if player 1 dot mod 1 is equal to player 2 dot mod 1, so if you have the same mod 1, then we need to look at the mod 2. If mod 2, oops, player 1. Then player 1 is going to win. Else if player 2 dot mod 2 and player 1 dot mod 2, player 2 will win. And else if player 1 dot mod 2 is equal to player 2 dot mod 2, means if we have the same hand rank, and if there's two pairs, that if there's two pairs and both of those pairs match, like a full house, you got 3 of a kind and then a pair. If that matches, then that means that we need to check the mod 3 and see if that matches. Okay, for whatever reason I lost sound here, and so I'm just going to try to walk you through what's going on. What we have to do here is, it looks like we were comparing the player 1 mod 2 and the player 1 mod 3, or the two players mod 2s. So if they're both equal, then the mod 3 for player 1, if it's greater, means that the player 1 won. If the mod 3 for player 2 was greater than mod 3 for player 1, that means that player 2 won. And if they are both equal, that means that that's a tie game. Now the mod 3, what it is like if you got 3 of a kind and 2 of a kind, then which would be a full house. If you got the same 3 of a kind and the same pair to go with it to make your full house, you can get the total of the entire hand to give you that last dice to tell if the actual hand is all equal, or if one player has a higher remaining dice than the other. And if that's true, then that player would win. After that, we're going to do the player reset. And let's see what we're doing now. I'm just going over what the player reset player is actually doing now, setting all the mods to 0, played defaults, and then looping through the arrays and setting everything back to 0. And there's how you call it the player 1 dot reset player and player 2 dot reset player. And now, if you notice this else if player 1 dot played, so it means if player 1 dot played is set to true, and player 2 dot played, I got an exclamation point in front of it, if that's set to false, that means that player 1 has pushed their button, but player 2 has not. So then you're going to set the the label text to saying waiting for player 2. And you're going to put their name in there. Now what that allows you to do is it allows the player to know which player has not pushed their button yet. So we're waiting for player 2 to roll. Then you know that they need to push their button before everybody can play again. And vice versa, you need to check to see if player 2 set to played is equal to true. And player 1 dot played is set to false. That means player 1 has pushed their button. So you need to set the label text to let them know that that player 1 would need to roll. So now I'm going to test it out, and I believe here it was off the screen when I was doing it, and I didn't notice that till just now, but I didn't actually set the label name for the player, so it wasn't showing, or for the results. So I was trying to figure out exactly why it wasn't showing, and I remember that I didn't actually add it in. So and you'll notice that I'm getting ready to add in right here under the dice images array. Once you set the images of the dice to what they need to be, then you need to actually set the label that shows what you have underneath that. So be label underscore winner result. I'm sorry, player 1 display results dot text is equal to player 1 dot result. And you got the result from get results function, the private function or method that we made inside the player class. So you add that to the player 1 and player 2. So now if you try it out, and I believe I bring the window over now. If for whatever reason my sound comes back here in a few minutes, so, and here we go, we get to play, and it's waiting for player 2, compares the 2 and it wins. And now it's just going to be me going back and forth talking about that, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. So, waiting on player 2, 1 pair, 3 of a kind, player 1 wins. Let's see if we can get like a matching pair. Okay, player 1 wins, you got a pair of 4s versus a pair of 3s, so you win. Trying to get a 2 pair here real quick. And maybe we won't be able to. Okay, there we go, 2 pair. So you got a pair of 3s and a pair of 2s versus a pair of 1s and a pair of 6s. So player 1 wins, and it's printing out properly. So I hope this was, easier to follow. I know that the that this part right here, the check winner part, might be a little bit odd about how I actually checked mod 1, mod 2, and mod 3. Basically all you're doing is you're getting the number of the dice that are paired up, or the 3 of a kind, whatever the first part of your hand rank would be. Like if you got a full house, your first part would be the 3 of a kind, then the second part would be a 2 of a kind. Mod 3 would be all the dice added together, and that way you can check to see what you have 3 of a kind of versus what they have 3 of a kind of, and if those are the same, then you can check what you have a pair of, what they have a pair of, and if those are the same, then you add all the dice together to get what that last dice would be, and then you get the winner from there, either a tie or somebody wins. So this is a very, we could have made another class to do the checking or whatever like that, but I just wanted to show how you can actually make a player class out of what we had already coded, put it all over there, and then you can actually make a new version of a new instance of the player here, and then you can use everything inside this class instead of having to type it out for each person. You could add more than 2 people to this. And another thing that you could do is when you start the game, you can ask them how many players, and then instead of actually using the form design or you could even use it, but you could set like the locations of all the different things as each player was made. That way you could, kind of dynamically position the players. Like if you had 3, you could put one here, one here, one here. If you had 4, you could space them out evenly, and so on and so forth. But this will be the last one in this series, and then we'll try to make something different next time. I'm not going to get into the XNA stuff yet, but after we get a few tutorials out, I will probably look at making an XNA role-playing game tutorial about how you can make a level editor and items, armor, stuff like that, and put it all into a game. But as always, visit the blog, like this, plus want it, subscribe if you want, and I'll see you guys next time.